143, clear visual approach runway 25 left. One 57, so Cal approach, maintain 759. Okay, 250 southwest, 157.
Hello from the flight deck. I'd like to welcome you to ADX Live HD, presented by AirDailyX.net, powered by Jetline Systems, broadcasting in prepared V2.2. Welcome aboard. Hey guys, I am seriously sorry about that. I had a crazy mic issue. I don't know what the heck happened. Everything was working okay, and then as soon as I hit the mic button, like nothing happened. So once again, it's another one of those fun issues with OBS where things just don't work. So I had to go back in and reactivate the mic. But unfortunately, that doesn't work unless I'm not broadcasting, which means I have to now stop the broadcast and restart the broadcast in order to get the microphone working properly so you guys can hear me. So hopefully everything is working properly. I'm just going to do a quick sound check just to make sure. Rolio saying it's the end of the year where technology was supposed to fail. I remember that whole Y2K thing, and that was actually pretty hilarious because we had did this like really kind of stupid. We had this stupid idea that right when the new year was going to start, we were going to cut all the power. So right when everyone was saying 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Happy New Year, and then all the power went out. So and then people freaked out. We were having like this huge party. I thought that was hilarious. I mean, that was back when I think that was like my first year out of high school. So doing a lot of the pranking stuff. But that was really just absolutely hilarious when all of a sudden the new year hits and then all the power's out and then people were just going crazy like, oh my God, it really did happen. And at the time when I was in high school, I actually was on the journalism team for the school newspaper. So I had written a lot of articles and stuff about it to kind of help freak people out, even though I pretty much knew nothing was going to happen. But anyway, it was good times. So anyway, welcome aboard. It's kind of an unusual late evening broadcast for me. I figured it's I like to call this limbo week, which is kind of that week right after Christmas, but right before New Year's, where it's just like, if you are in school, then that means you're on break, and if you're like me and you work for a living, then you're hopefully on vacation. But this is usually that week where it's just limbo. It's after the last holiday. You're just kind of waiting around for the new year, so maybe you're just hanging around being lazy. At least that's the case with me. But I've been sleeping in really late the past few weeks, so at least during my vacation. So today I really hoped to get up early, especially for you guys that are in Europe, and try to do like a really early live stream. But it's hard to fight the urge to get up or to stay asleep. So I wound up just sleeping in really late, and then I thought, am I going to do a stream? Am I not? There's not much news. There's a little bit of news out there, but not much. I mean, it's pretty much the end of the year. So I saw that there was a couple of things from Orbix, and there's an update today from this new Russian development team that I'm following. So I'll probably get those news articles up before the end of the day. But for the most part, I think the developers have gotten the last products out before the end of the year. The last product that I'm waiting for, that I'm hoping is going to be released before the end of 2014, would be the Monument Valley by Orbix. I saw there that Ian Ems posted the last final screenshots. So usually once he does that, the release comes like maybe within a week. But nothing yet. So I know that the New Year's countdowns are going to pretty much start around the world fairly soon. Today's already Tuesday. So actually, it's probably already happened in Australia, hasn't it? Or is my days mixed up? I don't know. When you sleep in late, your days get all mixed up. So Nevertheless, I thought, well, just kind of hanging around the house, not doing much, might as well do a stream. And then I sat around and thought, well, what am I going to stream? So I streamed most of the products that were recently released, many of them. So I thought, why not go back down memory lane? I know that LHSimulations is doing a Christmas sale that's still running, and I thought, why not give these guys a little bit of a push? They've developed some really, really high quality scenery, so I thought, you know what, why not go back down memory lane and check out some of their older products. I think I'm going to start doing that over the course of 2015, is along with making sure that I cover all of the latest products released via these sort of first look live broadcasts. I think it'd be fun to go back and look at some of the older products that were released back when we didn't have Twitch, back when we didn't have the ability to go in and look at some of these products live. So I think every now and then I'm probably going to do something where I go down memory lane and just sort of take a look at some of the older products that were done. So in looking at the product which we are now, which I believe is properly or maybe improperly pronounced Pex Pogany, we're out here on the Hungarian countryside. And this particular scenery was the very, very first article I ever wrote for ADX. This was back in, I want to say 2011, which was about maybe a month or so after I joined Dom on his endeavor of helping out with the AirDailyX.com, or the AirDailyX blogger website as it was back then. And I knew a little bit about LHSimulations. They had released a couple of freewares. I really wasn't that familiar with them, but I knew that the quality, a lot of people were really, really hailing them for the high quality freeware sceneries that they were releasing at the time. And I had never really given LHSimulations much of a second thought. I just thought, well, their stuff looks pretty interesting, but I guess I just wasn't motivated to download and try out some of their works. And so then they released this Pex Pogany scenery, which we're flying over right now. And, oh my goodness, Norton, why did I forget to disable that? Let's get that out of here. So I thought, you know what, let me just try these guys out. Now, when they released Pex Pogany, I looked at a couple of screenshots. It really didn't look like much. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and try it out. It's free. You know, when it comes to freeware, sometimes it's maybe an airport that you don't have much of an interest in, but you figure, I'll just, download it, give it a shot anyway, and see if it's any good. And so that was pretty much my approach with this particular scenery. I thought, you know what, I'll just download it, give it a shot, whatever. So I installed it, and then went after all of the library and landmark packs. And then I hopped in my old, this is FS9, mind you, because back in 2011 I was still pretty much heavy into my FS9, still rejecting FSX. So I thought, you know what, why not? I'm going to go ahead and download this. So I fired up my old Lionheart Creations Belanca, the old one. And so I got everything installed, fired up the scenery, and it puts you right on that taxiway hold short line just before the runway. And I remember sitting in my little virtual cockpit there looking around and just realizing, oh my God, this is incredibly detailed. And the first thought that came to my mind actually was Orbix, because I had not at the time owned any Orbix products. But I remember looking at the screenshots and just drooling at how great Orbix products looked. But because I didn't use FSX, because FSX never really ran well on my system, I just never had the opportunity to see what Orbix products looked like up close. So as a result, I just looked around, and the first thing that caught my eye was the grass. And I thought the grass was just the best looking grass I had ever seen. I mean, again, we're talking about FS9, so the grass was the best I had ever seen. And the first thought was, this looks like the grass from a lot of those screenshots that I see in LHSimulation sceneries. So then I taxied my aircraft out onto the runway and just kind of looking around, and all of a sudden all of this incredible, very high-end custom vegetation came into view, and I just remembered thinking, wow, this is some incredible vegetation. And I think up until this particular scenery, vegetation was not something that really was a big deal to me. I mean, it was FS9, so a lot of developers really didn't spend too much time creating high-end vegetation in FS9. I remember that very clearly. And so for the very first time ever, vegetation really, really caught my eye, and it was done with this particular scenery. So for those of you who've actually read my written reviews, then you already know how big of a deal it is when I write about vegetation and how important grass and trees and shrubs and all that stuff is. So that all pretty much started with this particular scenery. And I think one of the things that impressed me the most was the fact that there were so many different variations of vegetation, so many different kinds of trees and plants and shrubs and so on and so forth. And that was one of the things that I found most impressive, was the fact that it must have taken the amount of time to deliver an actual airport just to create these different species of vegetation and so on and so forth. So I found that to be incredibly impressive. So already I'm like really going crazy over this new freeware scenery, which already I had determined should be payware. And I hadn't even gotten to the airport itself yet. I hadn't even gotten over to the terminal building. I was still just gawking at grass and trees, and you know, that was something that was unusual for me. And mind you, I had never written a review before. And again, this was just shortly after joining AirDailyX. So I finally decided not to fly around the scenery yet. I was going to go ahead and kind of turn around and head back down the runway and take a look at that control tower from the virtual cockpit perspective, or from the spot view perspective of the aircraft. And that's exactly what I did. And by the time I turned off that hold short and started heading back toward the actual terminal itself, it finally came into view, and I just thought, wow, that looks really, really good. I mean, and obviously, back during the FS9 days, who are the people that we all held as the highest regards? Fly Tampa for many, many years. Definitely FS Stream Team. SimWings comes to mind, among others. And I just remember thinking, this quality is right on par with everything that I have hailed as, you know, the best developers in the business. And so as I made my way up to that main terminal building, my first thought was, you know what? I think I have to write about this. I mean, this is so good. This is a freeware product that is so good that I think I'm just going to have to write about it. People need to know how good this scenery is. And because I'm now a team member of AirDailyX, I thought there's no better way than to write something about it on AirDailyX. And so there led my very, very first ever written review, or any review of any kind. And I have to be honest, obviously AvSim has been around for a number of years, the same with FlightSim.com, and a number of Mootly's Hangar comes to mind, a number of famous, well-known websites where anyone can just kind of contribute a review. And yet I never ever felt compelled to write anything to any of those websites before. But here I just felt compelled. I'm going to write my first review. And it really wasn't much. It was just a few words, and it's still available now, actually. If you take a look at the first look page, it is archived there somewhere. And you can see it's not very long. I didn't take very many screenshots. I totally forgot to do winter textures. I mean, for the first time writing a review, it dawned on me all the things that I could have written about that I didn't write about. But with that said, one of the things was very clear, and that was that I really liked the scenery, and this whole thing of writing reviews would be new for me. Still taking a look around, though, I can tell that there's something that's still quite not correct with the installation. I'm noticing that there are some static aircraft that should be present that are actually not here, and there's these funny like little curbs here that are sort of misplaced. Those shouldn't be sitting across the ramp, so I'm not sure what's wrong with my particular installation, but definitely something hasn't installed correctly, unfortunately. So we're not actually looking at it the way that it was meant to be seen, only because it looks like there's a couple of things that are off here. But I think ultimately, hopefully you get the gist. I mean, if you just take a look at the level of quality that was delivered here, it's incredible. I've actually never tried this before. I think I'm going to try to land the helicopter on this little dolly here behind this tractor. I never did check to see if this was landable. Well, I guess it is, huh? I guess I've sort of kind of halfway landed on it. So once again, everyone, welcome aboard. I'm going to take a quick look at any questions or comments. So welcome, Rolio, Captain Gombo, and for the rest of you kind of tuning in this late evening. And I noticed you guys are talking about the Fly Tampa Toronto. That Fly Tampa Toronto, it's really hilarious. Fly Tampa, I believe they put that Well, all of my static aircraft are missing. Usually these little spots here, you'd see all kinds of static planes sitting out here. I don't know why they didn't load in. I know I installed all the libraries, so I'll have to go back and find out what happened. But nevertheless, Flight Tampa put that dot on the website above the Toronto area. I think that was like, that must have been almost 2 years ago. And I kept saying over and over and over, Flight Tampa is developing Toronto. I mean, it's like, how much common sense do you need? But a lot of people would challenge me and say, well, they haven't officially announced it, so we don't know that it's Toronto. And I'm thinking, what else do you think that dot is? I mean, there's only one airport in that area. There's the Toronto, that island airport. And with the exception of that, I mean, is Flight Tampa really going to go out of their way just to develop a small island airport? I don't think so. Without doing the major international airport anyway. So I have a feeling that they're going to do both, though. I have a feeling that they're going to do both airports. And knowing Martin the way he did Dubai, I wouldn't be surprised if he actually took time and actually created the entire city of Toronto as well, with the downtown area and city buildings. I wouldn't be surprised if he actually did that. So we'll sit around and wait. But one of the things I pointed out in my article, if you've followed Flight Tampa over the years, you'll notice George and Martin, they have sort of a different way of doing things. Emilios is now part of Flight Tampa, and he does things his way as well. But ultimately, the Flight Tampa modus operandi has always been super absolute secrecy until release. And essentially what would happen is they wouldn't announce anything, they wouldn't mention anything, everything would just be super quiet, and you wouldn't know what they were working on. Of course, you could speculate, and believe me, everyone always speculated, but you'd never know what it was they were going to deliver until like 2 weeks before release, and then finally the screenshots would come out, and you knew that if the screenshots were coming out, release was right around the corner. And that's just the way Flight Tampa operated. And I think what led them to operate that way was the fact that people can just be really highly negatively, can have a negative critique of products that are still in development. It's like, okay, this product is still in development. There's no reason to say, why does the ground look blurry or so on and so forth, but people would attack it even though it's still in development. So I think at some point, I think Martin just decided, you know what, I'm not going to do any more previews until the product is finally ready to go. So at the time, George was still doing kind of freewares. You remember the first version of Boston he did, which was a very, very highly popular freeware scenery for FS9, and probably the best freeware of its particular time. And so nevertheless, George, he decided to do things a little bit differently, give you guys a couple of teasers in there every now and then for his projects. Emilios, who of course is now with Flight Tampa, with Copenhagen, he gave us quite a few previews before release. And but when it comes to Toronto, I believe Toronto was a Martin project. So whereas they all assist each other with their products, obviously each product has its leads. For example, Montreal, George was the lead of that product. Excuse me. So when it comes to Toronto was definitely a Martin product, which means that we would not see any previews until it's close to release. So I think the fact that they have posted that preview up on their Facebook page, I think that's really good news. I think not only do I believe we're looking at a first quarter 2015 release, but it could very well be sometime within January or maybe even February. So that's a very, very big deal. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what Flight Tampa is going to, what their timeline is. And of course, we won't know until we get close. So if I'm lucky enough, I'll be able to get a couple of exclusive screenshots for you guys. But if not, I am fairly confident that release is not too far away. So again, speaking about freewares, we're just taking a look at the very first product I ever reviewed for ADX, and my first written review ever. And back then, not only did I not have a computer that was even reasonably fast enough to try to do a live stream, but there was no Twitch back then. I think back then it was just Justin TV. I don't think Twitch had officially become Twitch at the time. So had I had this equipment and had Twitch been available back then, I would have probably done a live stream of this, no doubt. So, as I said earlier on, I think it's good to be able to go back and kind of do some memory lane previews where certain products that were available where Twitch was not at the time. I think it's good to go back in and just go back and overview some of those earlier products. And this product, as good as it looks, it's all free. So we're just going to take a look at 3 of LHSimulations sceneries this evening. The next one we're going to head over to, and you know, I'd be crazy to even try to pronounce it, to be honest. I'm just going to switch over to my desktop here really quickly. What is the name of that scenery? I've got to think about it here. I want to say it's Győr, but it's Hungarian, so I just know that there's no way I could probably, you know, try to pronounce it properly. But I think it's LHPR. There it is. I think it's Győr, but when it comes to different languages and trying to read things are not always as they seem, unfortunately. I see Panga's on board. Welcome, buddy. And Fonzie's saying he lives in Toronto, works at the Island Airport. It's only small by size. The traffic with all of those Q400s from Porter is crazy during peak times. It also happens to be the 9th busiest airport in Canada, really helping the model CYTZ, the downtown core, and Vancouver. Really excited. Yes, well, I'll just say this, Fonzie. I'm fairly confident that they are doing the Island Airport, so I mean, don't obviously go jumping for joy just yet. But usually, when I say I'm confident about something, I'd say there's an 80% chance it's going to happen. So you know, do with that information what you will. But I'm fairly confident that they are going to do the Island Airport. So, but obviously, time will tell soon enough. So now we're taking a look at Győr, and this is, and I'm probably just butchering that horribly, I know. This is another airport that I wrote a review on. In fact, I've reviewed everything that LHSimulations has released with the exception of their first 2 products. The second one, which was Debrecen, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, which is basically like an old military base converted to a low-cost airport. I think that was first served by Ryanair, if I'm not mistaken. That's the interesting thing about Ryanair. They sort of more or less they took on the Southwest Airlines ideology, flying into secondary airports, and so there were airports in Europe that Ryanair wanted to fly into, or cities in Europe, I should say, in mainland Europe that Ryanair wanted to fly into, but there was just no airports, but there were air bases. So there were a lot of air bases that just converted to small regional airports. Well, actually, they'd be international. But, yeah, a lot of small air bases made the conversion for Ryanair, and a lot of other airlines just sort of followed suit with that. Very, very interesting stuff. So this particular airport is actually undergoing some renovation, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're going to make the runway a little bit longer, and I think they're adding an extra apron if they haven't done it already to accommodate more aircraft. So one of the things that makes this particular airport so famous, or maybe I shouldn't say famous, but certainly makes it important, is the fact that this is where Audi's Hungarian plant is. So this airport is primarily served not by commercial traffic, but by corporate traffic. And you'll notice there's some Audis there sitting in the parking lot, which are very well rendered. And in fact, if we get a little bit closer to the terminal here, you'll see that there's some Audi billboards there, including a flag, which is also by Audi. They built one of their plants here, one of their non-German plants out in Hungary. And so a lot of the corporate traffic actually comes into this airport. And if you use the landmark pack, then the actual Audi assembly plant is actually included as part of the scenery. It's actually not far from the airport. I don't know if I go to a higher elevation here if we can actually see it. I think there are certain things that are not actually appearing in the scenery, unfortunately, so I don't know if it's going to appear or not. I can see this building here on the hill. That sort of castle is actually part of the landmarks pack. So I'd like to think that the Audi power plant or the assembly plant would be out there somewhere. But so that's one of the things that makes this airport so special. And so after the PEX Pagani, which was the airport we were just looking at, LHSimulations then released a statement basically saying we can no longer afford to give these sceneries away for free. And I was thinking, how did you manage to give away PEX Pagani for free in the first place? I mean, you look at the quality of that; it's definitely highly, regarded as a high-quality payware. So as freeware goes, I still regard it as one of the best quality freeware airports ever built. Now these sceneries, I believe PEX Pagani was optimized for FS9. I believe they developed it for FS9 and then they created an FSX version. But when they got around to this particular airport, I can't remember if this one was optimized for FS9 as well and then gone back and recreated for FSX, or if the FSX version was done first. That, unfortunately, I can't remember. But one of the things I do recall, and one of the things that I also pointed out in my review, is that this particular airport had the best quality photoreal application I think I had ever seen. And the great thing about Hungary, and I really have to, make this clear, the great thing about Hungary is the airport authorities across Hungary were very, not only were they very helpful to the development team, but they gave full access to everything that the development team needed to create the airports. So everything you see in both PEX Pagani and this airport here in Debrecen and in Budapest, which we'll head over to next, they had full access to the airport. That's something that's essentially almost impossible to get here in the U.S. I mean, I couldn't imagine walking up to JFK and saying, hey, I'd like full, complete access to the airport to develop a flight simulation rendition. They'd look at me like I was crazy. Or they'd turn around and say, no problem, that'll cost you $25,000. So, especially an airport like LAX, there's just no way it would happen. I mean, LAX is known for filming. Whenever there's filming for an airport, because obviously this is where Hollywood is, LAX has a tendency to stand in. For example, if you look at the Die Hard movie, which is supposed to be Dulles, that was actually all filmed at LAX. So quite naturally, that airport, they look for money. So to be able to say, yes, I need to go in with cameras and a team and photograph LAX, if they say yes, it's going to cost quite a bit of money. Because quite naturally, they have an expectation that Hollywood's going to spend money, so will anyone else. And, when it comes to any other airport around the U.S., I'm sure it's probably equally as difficult. And one of the things I pointed out in a recent article as well is sometimes I like to spot. Spotting is just fun. I have a nice digital camera. I like to go out there with the lenses and the scanner and listen to ATC and spot aircraft. And there is a couple of spotting areas, but if you try to spot anywhere outside of a spotting area and the police just happen to roll by, they'll stop you. They'll stop, they'll ask questions, they'll bug you. Obviously, it's, you're exercising your free right, but nevertheless, you can't do that without, someone getting on your case. Meanwhile, if you go to Zurich, you can, get on a bus and drive around the damn airfield. I mean, that's the differences between Europe and the U.S. So I say all that to say that it was very, very nice to see all of the airport authorities being so helpful with the LHSimulations team, giving them full access, and that's how you get this really high quality photoreal application. And you can really just see the amount of passion and detail that went into everything they did here. And in fact, one of the things I pointed out, let me just switch views here for a quick second. One of the things I actually pointed out in my review is I believe you can see Sandor himself, which is the he's the lead developer over at LHSimulations. He is actually in the scenery, I think, in a couple of places. If we get over to this tower, I am assuming that's him inside the tower, or it's one of the guys. In fact, if you go back and look at the review, there is a picture there that the guy sent of the team at the airport. But this may be him here just approaching the tower. Could be wrong. This could be just the tower guy here. And by the way, I love the way they did the glass there. It was very, very well done. And I remember one of the things I asked Sandor at the time when Melev had gone bankrupt and the team had decided they were definitely going to take on Budapest. I had asked, is there any way you guys going to, use more of that glass? The way you guys did the glass on that control tower, I felt was so well done. Is there any way we might see more of that in the future? And they actually said yes, they would. And as a result, we have some very nice internal modeling on the main terminal there at Budapest. Very nicely done. So I'm not sure if it's here in this version, but in the FS9 version, you can actually see, it looks like they removed it. They edited it. It was edited out of this version. But in this little shack here, you can actually see the photographer taking a picture of the shack. And it's definitely in the FS9 version. If you go back and look at the review, you'll see his reflection taking a picture. I guess they removed it out of the glass there for the FSX version, or the prepared version. But yeah, his photo was there in the actual glass, so it's funny to see that it's been removed out of this version. But anyway, hopefully this just gives you a good overall perspective and idea of the amount of just absolute passion that went in, and the effort from this team that went into creating this airport. Everything was just so incredibly done. And this really just created my overall interest in flying in Hungary, was just the amount of just absolute effort. You can take a look inside the hangar here. There should be some gliders and stuff in here. Unfortunately, all of the statics aren't showing up, so I'm not sure what I did wrong with the base pack, but the base pack did not properly install for the objects, because a lot of them have not appeared, unfortunately. So usually during the summer months, they're outside the hangar, and then during the winter months, everything is brought inside, which is pretty nice. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. In fact, let's head over now to the, there's another airfield that they included with this one. And the moment Alabeo released those crop dusters, the Pawnee Brave 375, if I'm not mistaken. Look at that. There's a nice little tent there with a bench underneath. Yeah, when Alabeo released those crop dusters, I was all over it. They made a really nice airfield out here with the runway going right in between the crops. And it's really cool how you kind of descend in between the crops there. It's got a nice hangar and a few other objects. So what they did was they added a full photoreal terrain coverage area to cover both airports. And it all blends in fairly well with OpenLC Europe as well, which, by the way, I have to say is the best product ever released for Europe, outside of the FTX regions. Orbix has really kind of taken over and dominated the market of creating and recreating landscapes for Flight Simulator, without a doubt. Bluefin, welcome aboard. Bluefin is saying, so happy LHZH is his home airport. Yeah, Zurich was actually the very first airport in Europe I had ever landed in. And it was right after EDOC was built. And it was, as a matter of fact, the aircraft that I flew on was the brand new Swiss A340-300 out of LA. And I remember when I flew on that aircraft, it was only, I think, 2 or 3 months old. It was brand spanking new, so it was like right after they had retired the old MD-11s. And got a nice business class seat there. And the business class was okay. I didn't like how the business seats kind of folded down at an angle. It kind of made me feel like I was standing up and sitting down at the same time. But I'm glad to see they finally changed those old business class seats. But nevertheless, I remember getting off the plane and onto this EDOC. And I just couldn't believe that an airport could look that good. Just getting down here a little close to the ground so you can see those crops. So if you're a fan of those Alabeo crop dusters, you should have some fun out here. Lots of grass and corn crops. And during the winter, all of these crops sort of die out. They kind of turn kind of blackish brown, and they're not as prominent. So very, very realistic. And the hay barrels disappear too. Those hay, what do you call them? These blocks of hay, whatever you call them, those hay rolls out there. Those all disappear in the winter as well. So I'm noticing there are a lot of library objects that are not present. And I don't know, I installed it twice, and it's still not seeming to find the, I don't know what's going on. And I did activate it in the scenery library as well, but all of the library objects just aren't showing up. And that's kind of unfortunate, because the library objects really, really make the scenery. They really do. So it's just unfortunate that none of those library objects are showing up. That kind of sucks. Alright, so I'm not going to keep this stream going for too long. Just thought I'd pop in and do a couple of things, especially since the news has been kind of dead during limbo week here. But let's go ahead and take a look at Budapest. And by the way, while we do that, let me just switch back over to desktop here. Let's see, we're going to head over to LHBP. Hopefully everything's going to show up the way it should, more or less. Go to airport. There we go. And just in case, if you've never taken the time to do it, let's close that. Let's see, scenery reviews. Just in case, if you're still bored after the stream and you might be looking for something nice to read, and if you've never read my review of LHSimulations Budapest, what I essentially did was I took the idea sorry, my voice is really going crazy. I think I need water. But what I basically did was I took the review, and for the first time ever in the history of flight simulation reviews, I decided to do something new, something entirely different. And basically what I did was instead of so much reviewing the product, I decided to write a story around the product, around the airport. And basically what I did was I took the perspective of, let's say you were able to, you remember Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, if any of you guys remember that? This is something along the lines of that. If you were able to actually shrink yourself digitally and go into the simulation world and explore products, that's basically what I did. Is I shrunk myself and I went into the computer, into the environment of the flight simulation, and I actually wrote a story of what it's like to be in the world of the simulator. So basically what I did was I wrote an entire novel. So if you're interested, definitely take it a point, or make it a point to read the review. Let's see here. I'll just read the first paragraph just to give you an idea of what the review sort of pans out. It had been a long, busy week. After having spent 3 days on the Isle of Man conducting a complete tour and survey of the island for Earth simulations, I received a call to my hotel room from the Orbix London office asking me to take the next ferry to Belfast, where I would conduct my survey of FTX NIR, which of course had just been released at the time. Looking out over the Irish Sea from my room in Douglas, I agreed and headed to Belfast. Spending the entire day in the sky above the North Ireland countryside, I decided to take a break for a few days. The previous week had indeed taken its toll. Being stranded with a 737 in Friedrichshafen, plus having conducted several tests with Aerosoft's Twin Otter in Switzerland, spinning Alabeo's Tomahawk in France, and conducting ADX first look tests of 3 new airports up in Poland, it was time for some much-needed rest. But no sooner than I arrived to my hotel in Belfast, I received a voicemail asking me to make my way to Southampton. Hello, DeAndre. Lars here. We have just finished the final touches on Southampton. I heard you were in the UK, and I was wondering if you wouldn't mind making your way over if you have time. I'm sure the ADX readers would like your input on the work we put together here, so if you're free, that would be great. I'm heading off to Berlin in the morning to oversee construction at Brandenburg, so I'll miss you, but give me a ring if you can make it. Damn, looks like my break would have to wait another day at least. But I was excited about Southampton. I was able to get a last-minute flight on EasyJet out of Aldergrove to Gatwick, where I would then bear the drive to Southampton. Spending the entire day at EG&I, it was only after I conducted my work for the first look that I realized just how tired I really was. I decided to spend the night at the airport's Premier Inn motel and take the flight to LA via the long drive back from London the following morning. After some dinner, a couple of glasses of water, and an episode of Top Gear, I slept. So anyway, by the way, that was not Lars's accent. Lars has a very thick German accent, but nevertheless, so I went on ahead and did this whole sort of storyline. Monday, September 12th. Oh. Let's try that one more time. Monday, September 2nd, 2013, 12:45. The phone rang. I ignored it. It rang again. Fine, I answered. A very sexy female voice in an Eastern European accent I could not quite make out. Mr. Newman? Speaking. Hello, Mr. Newman. My name is Catalin Ilona from LHSimulations. I have just been instructed to get in touch with you regarding our current development in Budapest. Is this a bad time? I looked over at the clock. 12:45 p.m. Shoot, I had overslept. Those thick curtains in hotel rooms really block out the daylight quite effectively. Okay, hang on just a minute. Catalin, you said your name was? Yes, Mr. Newman. Please, take your time. I put my iPhone down and made my way to the window. Opening the curtains, EG&I was very visible. To the left, littered with Q400s, E170s, and Avroliners. Among them was a Q400 with a rather odd-looking livery I couldn't quite make out. The weather was bloody typical, with the sun well hidden under a very thick layer of overcast. It looked cold out there, too. I made my way to the bathroom where I let out a pee so long, my legs started to buckle. I thought that was funny. Too much wine. I went back to the phone, thinking this chick likely hung up by now. She had been on hold for over 5 minutes. A long pee indeed. Hi, Catalin, you still there? Yes, Mr. Newman. Okay, what can I do for you? So anyway, the story just kind of goes, and it's actually a fairly long story. I feature quite a few different developers that you guys, I'm sure, are aware of. I think what I liked most about writing this whole story was the very ending where I get ambushed by the guys at Taxi to Gate. Basically, LHSimulations had chartered a private 767-200, an Oatmeal aircraft, to take me back to LA. But then once I get on board the aircraft, I fall asleep, and then I wake up the following morning and find that I'm over the desert. And obviously, if you've ever approached LA before, the desert literally is just maybe 30 minutes flying outside of LA. You're flying over the desert. So I'm looking out the window, and I see the desert out there. And then as it turns out, the desert, something about the desert just didn't look quite right. So while flying over the desert there, I noticed there's two guys on board that I didn't realize earlier, or didn't recognize earlier, and they come over and they basically tell me, hey, we want you to check out our new Mexico City airport. And I'm like, nope, I'm tired. I just did this whole review of Budapest and all that stuff. And they said, well, you don't have a choice. And I'm like, what do you mean I don't have a choice? And then the captain comes on and he says, ladies and gentlemen, we're making our approach into Mexico City. And then I'm like, holy shit. So, but anyway, it's a pretty interesting story. So if you ever have the time, definitely make your way over and check out this long story that I wrote. I'm not sure if I'm going to write another one because this took so long to do, but it still reviews the products in the same way that a review would review a product, but nevertheless, it just gives you an entertaining storyline behind it. So if you never checked it out, head over to the scenery reviews page and check out that ADX novel, as I call it. I think you'll find it to be quite entertaining. Okay, so now that that's all done, we are now here at Budapest taking a look at the scenery for the first time live. Going to take a quick look at some comments, and then we'll take a quick overview of Budapest. And just a reminder, LHSimulations is having a sale. As a matter of fact, let me just go back there one more time really quickly. Let's see, LHSimulations. LHSimulations is having a sale right now. So if you liked any of these sceneries that you saw today, you might want to take a minute and take advantage of the sale. They're having a 25% off. So if you don't have Budapest yet, if you don't have that Giro Per that we were just looking at a minute ago, you want to head over to LHSimulations and take advantage of that before it's over. I think it's still going on. It's still on their main page, so I assume it's still going. Okay. Oops. Did I not go back to the desktop to show you that? I don't know if I did or not. I realized I wasn't in the right the right area there. But LH Simulations. One more time, just in case. I'm not sure if I showed that or not. I realize I clicked the wrong button. So there it is one more time, 25% off. And Budapest is included. So definitely take advantage of that. Okay, here we go. So now finally we're going to take a quick look at Budapest, take a look at some comments really quickly, and then we'll take a quick overview. All right. Some comments of the female voice. I don't know. I tried to do a female voice. Yes, DeAndre, this is. I don't know. Anyway, I thought I'd try that. I don't know. Maybe at some point I'll go back and do like a whole voiceover for that story for anyone too lazy to read it. So anyway, now we are taking a look at Budapest, and I know with a lot of the articles I write, whenever I try to. When I look at a new developer and I say, these developers have the opportunity to be just as good as, and then I'll list the following developers. Usually Flightbeam is at the top of the list, followed by Flight Tampa, followed by FS Dream Team, followed by Taxigate, and so on and so forth. The only reason why I don't say LHSimulations, or I don't put them on that list whenever I usually try to make those comparisons, is because unfortunately to date they only have the one mega airport. Whereas Flightbeam has several, FSDT has several, and of course Taxigate now has several. And Budapest, without a doubt, was the big LHSimulation scenery. And I just want to make myself clear. I mean, if you're a fan of Flightbeam, in fact, I would say that this scenery is better than FSDT, but that's just my opinion. But nevertheless, if you're a fan of Flight Tampa and Flightbeam and all those guys, I mean, LHSimulations is right up there. Right on par in terms of quality. I mean, the quality that they did with Budapest is absolutely incredible. It is amazing, and I just couldn't believe my eyes. I mean, I knew it was going to be good. Going back in and looking at the older products they did, it was obvious it was going to be good, but it turned out to be far better than I could have ever imagined it would be. So by all means, you really should, especially if you fly around Europe or if you like to do long hauls, you definitely should add this to your list. I mean, it is an incredible work. I love what they did with the glass here. That glass there is just amazing. And of course, they added full internal modeling there. And they did go back and make an FS9 version. The FS9 version is not as good. You don't get a lot of these features that obviously you get in Prepared or FSX. But nevertheless, look at those reflections. And I love the fact that the reflections they put on the glass reflect the actual environment of the airport and not, just some default FSX imagery. Something that I'm finally starting to see a lot of developers are starting to get out of doing. But, I mean, everything from the jet bridges to the ramp vehicles, I mean, everything that they did was absolutely perfect. I didn't have anything negative at all to say about this airport. The performance is impeccable. The ground textures, I mean, everything. They left nothing out. And if you don't know much about LHSimulations, basically the way LHSimulations came together, and I did do an interview with the team, and I'm hoping to do a live stream with them in the near future with their next product. But one of the things about LHSimulations is basically it was just a bunch of guys. I believe they flew on IVAL, if I'm not mistaken, IVAO. And they just met each other flying online a lot. And at some point, they fly on the Hungarian, obviously, side of IVAL. And at some point, they all just, I guess, through having conversations, decided, we should come together and try to, put some sceneries together, try to collaborate, get some projects going. And that's what they did with their first project. And it was a good freeway for its time, not super great, but one of the things they realize is that they can definitely, collaborate together. And of course, they all live across the country of Hungary. So it's not like they all live in Budapest where they can meet up every day. No, unfortunately, they all live like on the various corners of the countryside. So as a result, they really had to collaborate as if they were, thousands of miles away. But nevertheless, I mean, it all came together. They came together and they made it happen. And it's amazing to see how much they've learned. If you go back and download that first freeware project that they did, and you look at Budapest now, I mean, it's just amazing how far they've come together as a collective team of people who just met online and decided they wanted to take care of their home country. They wanted to deliver airports that no one else was doing. And not only did they do it, but they did it so impressive. I mean, in such a manner that, I mean, it just boggles the mind what they've accomplished here. So, by all means, if that long review that I wrote, if that didn't move you, hopefully the quick live stream here will, because it is on sale currently. It's incredible. It's amazing. And they added lots of nice billboards, one of which I'm going to swing around here. This is my favorite billboard in the scenery, this big fat billboard here in the front. I'm gonna just try to hover my helicopter around this little billboard here. Look at that. This was back in the old days, the old Air Daily X website, but they were so nice to do that. That was just, I thought that was just such so wonderful that they did that. It's in Hungarian there, and we have our Hungarian pilot wondering, what's a nice flight simulation website I should check out before my flight? But lots of cars in the lots, and of course you have these older statics that sit out here. The history of Maliv. In fact, they really should throw out one of the Maliv 767s or something that were retired and stick them in there. So sad about Maliv that it never worked out. I never got to fly on Maliv. I knew people that worked for Maliv, but I myself, I never got to fly with them. And it was very sad to see that airline go. Maliv, I don't think they ever flew to LA, but they did have a sales office here. I knew they flew to JFK. But it was really sad to see Maliv go. And I remember just thinking back to the old Aerosoft version of Budapest. It was actually one of my top 15 favorite sceneries. It really was. So LHSimulations coming in and doing it the way that they did with their own way of doing things, I mean, it makes it one of the best airports ever made for flight simulation. And it's one of my top 5, this one. And I mean, just kind of going back and discussing how they got full access to the airport. I mean, you can just see it right here. Everything is photoreal. Everything is photoreal. So that just gives you an idea of, the amount of access they had to this airport. And from what I understand, not only was the airport willing to let them come on and do this, but apparently the airport authority was actually ecstatic. They were actually happy to have the team come in and do this. And there's our Maliv 767 there. And I always liked the livery of Maliv. I love the blue nose, and I always thought they had a really nice livery. Not, the Euro white. They had some color in their livery. And it's really sad to see that airline gone. Like many airlines, sometimes I guess it's bad oversight or bad management. I know they had a lot of debt and so on and so forth, but nevertheless, whenever I get my AI worked out, I'm going to go in and have all my old Maliv AIs reinstalled. This airport just doesn't look right without Maliv. It really doesn't. So just taking a look at the older terminals here. I mean, just look at this quality. Let me just try to stop my helicopter here really quickly. I mean, just look at the quality of the photoreal that they added here. I mean, and one of the things that I know with certain developers, and I won't name who, but one of the things I know about certain developers is when it comes to a lot of these like logistics buildings that are kind of out of the way, a lot of developers tend not to spend too much time doing these buildings in high detail because there's no point. It's just, the bottom line is just to put them there because they're there in real life and to make them look as realistic as possible without going into too much detail so that you don't affect performance. But with LHSimulations, they went in and did every building to high quality. Every single one. And then they went in and did the neighborhood surrounding the airport. Look at all those trees, all those houses, which are very Hungarian, very Eastern European-like. I mean, they really, really took the time to go in and deliver all of these neighborhoods, all of these trees, all the hangars, all the buildings in very, very high quality. So, I mean, it's just incredibly impressive. So, I must have taken what probably felt like 1 million screenshots that I added in that review. So, by all means, if you haven't read that review, or if it's too much to read, just go in and look at the screenshots. I think you'll find that I really, really did go all out in taking screenshots. But again, when you look at that quality, I mean, it's just incredible. I mean, it makes me wish they could just deliver airports pretty much the same that Flightbeam does, where you can look forward to getting a new mega airport at least once a year. Obviously, that's not going to happen with this team, but nevertheless, I mean, you look at the quality and what these guys are able to produce. It's incredible. And like someone else mentioned, they have moved on to Croatia, so their next airport is a little bit smaller. Unfortunately, they've done pretty much all the airports there that there really is to do in Budapest or in Hungary. There are not a lot of airports, so they've pretty much done all the important ones. So the next step would be just moving out of Hungary altogether. And so the next stop is Croatia. And I am crossing my fingers, and I'm really, really hopeful that that particular airport will be a 2015 release. I hope so. One of the things about LHSimulations is they don't rush anything. They do take their time. It is a side hobby for them. You know, I don't get the feeling that they do it for money. I think they do it because it's their passion. I think money really is the byproduct of their work, of their efforts. So they do take their time. So even with these smaller sceneries, it does take them quite a long time to do them, but it's obvious that, you know, they're really working out of their passion. That's LHSimulations. That's how they operate, and that's one of the things that I really, really do respect about them. I'm gonna do just a quick switch over to let's see here. Let's take a look at some night lighting, shall we? As a matter of fact, I'm going to crash my helicopter, so I should probably try to land that while I try to adjust the night lighting here. Ah! That wasn't a very good landing. Let's see. So, let's see. Got about 10 more minutes left in the stream. Going to take a quick look at the night lighting and see how well that was done. Which, I can tell you now, was done very impressively. But don't take my word for it, of course. Let's see, I don't think the lights are on just yet. Oh, there's some lights there. Look how beautiful that looks. Very well done. Let's see, let's try that. I mean, the immersion is so realistic, the way they recreated this entire environment. LHSimulations knows how to deliver a scenery, no doubt. And again, if I had the beautiful Jetline Systems rig back when this scenery was released, no doubt I would have done a live stream to show it off. So again, I think for 2015, that's going to be a new thing that I'm going to start looking at, is kind of going down memory lane and looking at some of the older scenery products that are, you know, just as good as everything being released today, but just things that have never been streamed before, or at least not by me. So that's something that I'll be looking forward to in 2015, and I'll try to get into taking kind of requests to see a few things. I know this Rex Soft Clouds is very interesting, and someone asked me if I can do a live stream of that because they're very curious of what that actually does. So if I'm able to get a copy of it, I'll be sure to do that as well. I know there's some curiosity in terms of just exactly what that is and what makes that any different than some of the things that some of you already have, I'm sure. I guess we'll just stick around here for a second and let him come in. Boosh. So once again, guys, we're glad you could join me on Limbo Week as we get ready to close out 2014. It has been a great year, and by the way, I did finally get around to completing the ADX billboard. I'm not sure if anything else is going to be released before the end of 2015, but if it does, I'll make sure to update it. The new 2015 billboard is now up and running, and if you need to get back to the 2014 billboard for any reason, I did put a link there on that page for you guys to go back and take a look at all of the 2014 releases. And I think what the billboard will depict is that 2014 was indeed an incredible year for flight simulation and all of the releases we got. We got quite a few releases, and now we can start doing year-to-date stuff. So now we can start taking a look at month over month how releases are, and that'll give us an idea of just how much better 2015 is. Will 2015 deliver more products over 2014? That will be a good thing to see. Or will it deliver less products but more higher end, high quality products? So that's going to be very interesting to follow and see how that works out. But if it's one thing that 2014 showed us, is that flight simulation is very much alive, and the developers are working hard, they're delivering, and obviously you guys are spending your money because the developers are still working. So that's a very, very good thing. And as long as the developers are here to do their part and you guys are purchasing scenery, which is your part, I'll be here in 2015 to do my part to continue to deliver more news, reviews for AirDailyX.net. So that's pretty much Budapest at night in a nutshell. So once again, this is all on sale, so 25% off. Be sure to jump in and take advantage of it before it's done. So just going to pull over, see if there's any more final comments. And if not, I will get ready to see you guys for a very busy 2015. I think I'm going to be busy. I hope I'm busy. Obviously, the busier the developers are, the busier I'm going to be. I guess we'll just set down. Isn't there a helipad around here somewhere? There should be. We'll just set down right in front of the main terminal here. And lots of nice animation car traffic. And by the way, if you have the scenery, if you never paid attention to it, also pay close attention to the glass on all the vehicles moving around. It's really cool to see how the environment, you can see in these two vehicles here in the background, these buses, you can see the environment reflecting in the glass as they drive around. You can see the buildings and stuff scrolling around in the glass. Really nicely done. They really, really did take their time and pay close attention to detail with this airport. I love it. And like I said, it's one of my top 5. So I tip my hat off to LHSimulations for this one. I'm going to just check any last comments. Oh, Balan22 says that 767-200 there is now in several parts. That's sad. I wish they hadn't scrapped it. I mean, I guess if they owed debt, then I guess it had to get scrapped to try to, I guess for the debt collectors to try to, get as much money as they could off it. But if they could have just spared at least one aircraft to go into that museum over there, it would have been worth it. But what are you going to do? Ah, yes. Willis is pointing out the winter textures. The only thing about the winter textures, and the only reason why I'm not going to switch to winter, I think is because I think I have to hit the winter. I think there is a control panel. And if you... Let me see here. Let me just try winter real quick. I think I have to select winter in the control panel. So I think what's going to happen is I think some of the vegetation may not carry over. Let me just try really quickly and see. I think sometimes the vegetation doesn't carry over or something like that. Because I remember when I install, I think it asks what season. So I think we may not get the full winter effect. I'm not sure, but we'll just do it for kicks and giggles really quickly before I sign off here. Let's see. No, I lost it. Sorry, guys. Uh-oh. It said it wasn't responding. Oh, it came back. Cool. I thought I was getting a CTD there. Let's see. Maybe we can take a quick look at some winter textures here. Okay, actually, no, everything does look wintry. Ah! I'm going to crash into the building. No, don't go in there. And another thing I really liked about the scenery as well is the effort that they went into putting all the snow on the roofs. That was also a really nice technique there as well. They really went out of their way to make sure that everything had snow on it. So there's a quick look at the winter textures. And there's a museum. Sadly, there's no Maliv. Maybe LHSimulations, whenever they go in and if they ever do an update, they should just throw a Maliv airplane in the museum there. I mean, they have the Maliv Tupolev there, but it'd be nice to see one of their more recent aircraft in there. But nevertheless, there is Budapest. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, well, I don't know if there's any ladies watching, but once again, everyone, thank you for coming on and checking out the stream as always. And again, it's been a great 2014 for those of you who have been tuning into the live streams all year. Always glad to have you on board. And thank you very much for helping me make this a regular thing. And this is pretty much probably going to be it for 2014. So I'll make sure any last news to close out the year will be available on the news page. But besides that, I look forward to seeing all of you in 2015. I think it's going to be a spectacular year. So I will see you guys all back here in a few days. So take care of everyone. Have a great New Year's and happy flight simming. And this is me signing out. Take care of everybody.